Ready? You're up. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kwantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 1 second. Thank you. Okay. On this 7th day of April, 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Chapter 9, The Appearance of the Demon Vritrasura. Text number 38. It's not a verse, but a prose passage, so I'll just read it myself. Sa evihi punak sarva vastuni vastu swarupaha sarveshwara sakala jagat karana karana bhutaha sarva pratyagatmat bhat sarva guna basopalakshita eka eva paryavasheshitaha. Translation. With deliberation, one will see that the Supreme Soul, although manifested in different ways, is actually the basic principle of everything. The total material energy is the cause of the material manifestation, but the material energy is caused by Him. Therefore, He is the cause of all causes, the manifester of intelligence and the senses. He is perceived as the Supersoul of everything. Without Him, everything would be dead. You, as that Supersoul, the Supreme Controller, are the only one remaining. Purport. The words Sarva Vastuni Vastu Sarupaha indicate that the Supreme Lord is the active principle of everything. As described in the Brahma Samhita 535, Eko Pisaura Chahitung Jagadanda Kotim Yakshaktirasti Jagadanda Chayayadantaha Andantarasta Padamana Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead, Govinda, who enters the existence of every universe and every atom by one of His plenary portions, and thus manifests His infinite energy throughout the material creation. Close quote. By His one plenary portion as the Paramatma, the Antaryami, the Lord is all-pervading throughout the unlimited universes. He is the Pratyak, or Antaryami, of all living entities. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Chaitragyam chapimam vidhi sarva chaitresu bharata. O scion of Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. Close quote. Because the Lord is the Supersoul, He is the active principle of every living entity, and even the atom. He is the actual reality. According to various stages of intelligence, one realizes the presence of the Supreme in everything through the manifestations of His energy. The entire world is permeated by the three gunas, and one can understand His presence according to one's mode of material nature. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is quite a varied set of prayers by the demigods, to Lord Narayan. I think it's the next verse that they mention how the ultimate object of prayer, the ultimate goal of life, is pure love for you. And one who is saturated with hearing and chanting their nectarian glories will develop that pure love. But even though they know that, they're not praying for that. They're not praying for that. They're praying for a way to conquer the demons. And they mentioned this, I think, in the previous verse about fear. How fear, that Prabhupada quotes that famous verse, Bhayam dvitiya abhinaveshadaksyari shadapetasya viparyo smritihi. What gives rise to fear? Because fear is not a natural emotion for the soul. In Goloka Vrindavan, there's no fear. That's our original home, right? So what gives rise to that fear is our embracing or our absorption in the dualities of this world. When we turn our back on Krishna, which is basically what that verse says in the second line, Bhayam dvitiya abhinaveshada ishad apetasya, turning away from the isha. Viparya, then everything becomes backwards. Viparya means we reverse our position. Instead of becoming humble servants of Krishna, we become his competitors. Instead of looking to only take our pleasure in the pleasure of the Lord, which is the platform of pure devotion, Anyabilasha Dushanya, we forget about the Lord and we try to have independent pleasure through the senses. And that produces great fear, because in order to do that, we need a body that's separate from our spiritual body. The material body is covers the spiritual body. We all have a spiritual body, right? So we have these material senses. We have the material body as a whole. We have a material world, which is always changing, and which is obviously not always conducive to our pleasure and our bliss, right? And so we're in the world of duality. And our very existence, we don't know that we're eternal. We think that we're born at a certain date, and we'll die at a certain day. That's if we're human beings. Otherwise, we're just in some animal form and is constantly in anxiety. So our everything is tenuous. This is the nature of the material world. That's why it's called Bhavasagara. It's the ocean of change. By the force of time, Krishna says, I am the great destroyer. Kalosmi loka chayakrit pravidho. That famous verse in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is trembling. He's no longer seeing his beloved friend Krishna in his beautiful form and human-like. He's seeing this monstrous, a huge form devouring every soldier on the battlefield, and the blazing mouths threatening the universe. So who are you? Time I am, come to destroy everything. And Krishna says he's time, I think, in 3 different places in the Bhagavad Gita. Kala Kaliyatamaham, of chastisers I am time, So we become subject to time. There's no time in the spiritual world. There's that famous verse at the end of the Brahma Samhita describing Goloka Vrindavan. Taryatra ki surabhi, I forget how that goes. Nayatra chirabdis savadi surabhibyasa sumahan. Nayatra, what is it? And so there's all of these cows, they're so happy, they're just flooding the land with milk. And then not a second passes away there. There's no past, there's no future. There's only the eternal present. Everything is ever fresh. No one gets old, and no one gets born, no one dies, nothing like that. So that's, that seems like an impossible world, because all we're used to is this changing world. But the changing world means it's fearful. It means that even if you get a situation that's somewhat stable and you have your source of happiness, and it doesn't take very much intelligence to understand that it can change at any moment, right? We live in an age with this climate change, where there's all of these shocks, these climate shocks. I mean, I'm shocked just by the weather here that we've been having. You've been here for like 50 years, right? Has it been this cold at this time of year? The rain and the cold at the late date, it's springtime. It's supposed to be 70 degrees. But here it is, So, and what to speak of tornadoes here, and the fires up north, and droughts everywhere, and the glaciers melting. And I just read yesterday the ozone. Some of you are too young to remember how the ozone layer was, and then the world governments actually got together and did something about it. They outlawed the stuff that was used for the air conditioners. They had to change it. In other words, they used it. But now the process of making that stuff that they put, new stuff that they put in there, is also causing the degradation of the ozone layer. The ozone layer is protecting us from too much ultraviolet light. We'd all be fried out. We couldn't go outside. It's very important. It's essential. So now you have to worry about that. There's another thing to worry about. Of course, you can always not worry. Just stick your head in the ground. The rabbit solution when the lion is coming at him. No way of getting away. He's not fast enough. Hey, I'll just put my head in the ground, and I have another 30 seconds. No problem. But that's what all this human society is doing. That's what it means to be conditioned in a conditioned life, even as a human being, to try to find some strategy by which you can ignore or at least forget your mortality. The fact that your whole life is like that song, like a little drop of water on a lotus leaf. They're very tenuous. Now in America, everybody's got these guns, these powerful guns. They're legal, AR-15s, which you can kill 30 people in 3 seconds. It's a law. You have to be. So that causes great fear. Then, just by the law of averages, there's a certain number of crazy people, right? They're going to be crazy. I remember, growing up, there was somebody in the class who wasn't quite right. There's always some. It's just the nature of, especially Kali Yuga. So there's going to be somebody who wants to murder someone. Well, if he can get a knife, he can maybe kill 1 or 2 people, then arrest him, put him away for life. But if he can get an AR-15, he can walk into a school or into a temple, as he's done, Jewish temple, killed 10 people here, walk into a grocery store, he's got some idea that black people are taking over, drives all the way up to Buffalo and kills 15 people at random, So what does that do for the people who are left? It creates a higher level of anxiety, right? Just ordinary walking down the street, going to the movie theater. Everything is now fraught with anxiety. So this is the material world. As Kali Yuga goes on, it becomes more and more anxiety-ridden. This is the idea. So what's the solution to that? Well, the solution is to get out of the material world. So he says in this verse, in the third line, Yan Mahayato, all of this is called by Maya, by Krishna's illusory energy. As soon as you turn away from Krishna, you get captured by Maya, right? That's a Daiviyesha Gunamami Mamamaya Doratiya. This energy is mine, it's divine Mayic energy. She's working for me. But if you're not surrendered to me and you're forgetting me and you want to try to, then you're bound up by the modes of nature and you have all of these fears and anxieties. So by surrendering to Krishna, one can easily cross beyond it. That's the the obvious truth. So here the demigods are praying. Their ultimate prayer is going to be for a way that they can defeat this Vritrasura. They're afraid of Vritrasura. And rightly so. He can swallow the universe. It's scary, big. They don't know that he's actually a devotee inside, So their prayers are like all over the place, in a sense. They're conclusive prayers about, here this one is like the Lord's tattva, the supreme soul, although manifest in different ways, is actually the basic principle of everything. So this is one of the reasons why we study the Shastra, so we can see ourselves and see the world differently. Rather than, it's said famously in the CC, although I forget the Bengali, that a pure devotee, someone who's completely realized, he doesn't exactly see a tree, but he sees Krishna. Because he sees the energy, the wood is all Krishna's energy, the soul in there is expansion of Krishna. There's nothing but Krishna everywhere, through his energy. What is it? Ekadesha stitis yagnir, josna vistaraniyata, parasya brahmana shakti, tatedam akidam jagat. This is quoted in the CC and all over the place. So just as a fire can be sitting in one place, we can imagine here we have a fire in the middle of the temple when we do a sacrifice, okay? But if it's a big fire, we don't usually do a very big fire, but if it's big enough, you can not only see the light if you're sitting in the corner, but you can feel some of the heat. So the fire's in one place, but it's emanating heat and light, and you can perceive the fire by those two things. Similarly, Krishna's in one place. He's in Goloka Vrindavan, but he's emanating all of these energies, right? The Mahatattva, all of that, that's coming from him ultimately. And he's also going into everything as the Supersoul. That's in this Eko Pasaya Chayatum. Andantarasta Padamana Chayantarasta. Very beautiful line, very poetic. Andantarasta means Padamana. All of the atoms are located within all the universes. And he's within each of those atoms. Andantarasta Padamana Chayantarastam. That's how it works. After it's describing how he's emanating all these universes, then he also enters every single universe, and as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and then Chiradakshay Vishnu, of course, and he expands into every atom. So in this way, there's ultimately nothing but Krishna and his energies. Just like you say, on common parlance, is open the blinds, open the window blinds so you'll let the sun in. What you really mean is let the sun shine in, right? Prabhupada points out, you let the sun in, you're finished. But that's it, because you identify the sunshine with the sun, because it's always connected, and it's the main effect of the sun. So similarly, one who has the vision of eternity sees through the Shastra, everything that he sees reminds him of Krishna. Everything that he or she sees reminds him or her of Krishna, because it's nothing but Krishna's energy, and Krishna's there as a Supersoul within the heart of every living being, within every atom, like that. You can see it. But you can't have that vision if you're trying to exploit this material energy for your own purposes. Then the curtain of Maya comes down, and you have this differentiation, this duality. Dvitiya binaveshita. Oh, this is pleasurable, this is painful. This is mine, this is yours. All of these dualities come up. Otherwise you say everything is Krishna's. First lesson, text 1 of the Ishopanishad, right? So if everything belongs to Krishna, then it should be used in his service, right? And therefore, this is how you live in the world, beginning with your own body. I love to chant this verse. No one else will ever chant it, but it's a beautiful verse from the Prayers of the Personified Vedas, which gives a central lesson that we have in all our shastras. Hare Krishna, welcome. Hare Krishna. Would you like to stay for class? Yeah. Please, have a seat. And then afterward we'll have breakfast. You can have breakfast with us. Awesome. Yeah. He'll give you, if you like to sit there, he'll give you a little cushion. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So here's this verse. You may know this one. Twadandupatam kulai midamat musarit priyavat chadaditaton maketi te priya abmanicha. Nabadadaho asadasat manayatnaho yadanushayabame urubaye kushaririyata. Here you have urubaye, greatly fearful. So the prayers, the Vedas are praying to the Lord, they're saying, my dear Lord, this human form of life is perfectly suited for engaging in devotional service to you. And if one does that, then his body becomes his best friend and becomes like paraphernalia for service. And so you maintain it nicely and take care of it. It's not your enemy anymore. And as far as you're the Supersoul, and you're guiding, and you're very pleased with such a person. But alas, those who do not take their pleasure in serving you, they worship the impermanent. This is the famous thing in the Bible where they worship mammon, Asat upasanaya. Asat upasana, worshiping the asat, the temporary. Atmahano, and in thus committing spiritual suicide. In other words, you can't ever kill a soul, of course, but you're killing your spiritual life. And then what's the fate? Yadanushaya brahme. Then they have to wander throughout the material world, taking all kinds of abominable bodies, not the auspicious human form, and which are very fearful. And then last is, alas, this is a terrible fate. So that's actually our choice. That's our choice. Nobody knows that. If you're in ignorance of the choice, then you just try to live in the material world and eke out some kind of pleasure and, with the plans. But it's fraught with fear because it's all of these. It's threatened at every moment. So this is our choice to understand our actual position as living entities, Atma, part and parcel of the Paramatma, of the Supreme Soul. And because we're part and parcel, Mamai Vangsho Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, then our duty and our natural position is to serve the interests of the Supreme. Just as the interests of the hand, part and parcel of the body, right, is to serve the will of the body. You don't think twice about it. If I want to get some water, I just reach back here. The hand is doing the work. If it's not doing the work, it's paralyzed or something, it's a problem. So we have our parts and parcels of Krishna who have rebelled against that natural state, our actual dharma. And therefore, we're in a tenuous position in any body, human body or not body. But in the human body, we can understand the position and we can reform it. It's just like a disease. You know, disease attacks the cats, the dogs, and all the animals and things, you know. But they don't know what to do about it. They don't have a science of medicine and things like that. But human beings can develop that. Okay, so then this herb we found actually works, or this medicine, you know, we develop that. And we can, you know, combat disease. Ultimately, disease wins. Old age wins and you die. But at least, you know, there's a whole science of medicine. So similarly, if we have the knowledge of the spiritual remedy, bhavaushadhi, the medicine to cure the disease of birth and death, then we can apply it if we're intelligent. But the problem is that we're so misguided by so many other forces that we don't have faith in it. We don't think it's real. We think it's just a Pollyanna. So getting that faith, that is implanted, it's created by association with devotees, sadhu sangha. That famous verse in the teachings, beginning of the teachings of Rupa Goswami, Brahmande Brahmate Ko, Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasare Pai, Bhakti Lata Bij. So, Brahmande Brahmate Ko means wandering, all the souls wandering in the different universes, different levels, different bodies, you know. The fortunate soul, who, by the mercy of the Guru, a spiritual master and Krishna, gets the seed of the creeper of devotion planted in the heart. Now what does that seed consist of? It consists of the teachings from the Shastra, and it consists of the holy name, and it consists of faith in all of these things. And that faith comes from the association. When you see the knowledge personified in somebody, and you can see how that person is peaceful and joyful and has things that you might be interested in, you know, that you'd like to emulate or attain, then you become more inquisitive and more receptive to the message. And Srila Prabhupada, that's why his spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada, they understood the importance of books. Because the books can themselves, they embody the teachings of the personality and the personality who's writing the books. And one can achieve that faith through the books as well. Most ideal is achieving it through the books and also personified. In other words, person to person has to be there at a certain point. So that's the value of sadhu sangha. Now these demigods who have been robbed, you know, they've been evicted from their heavenly planets, and they want to get back there. They've already made a few mistakes, you know, by killing their guru, offending their original guru, Brahaspati. And now Indra, oftentimes, he flies off the handle, and he killed the priest who was helping them, who gave him the Narayan Kavach, a shield. So now they have the problem of dealing with the results of the father's sacrifice, who created this demon, or invoked a demon, Vritrasura. Not exactly as he expected, but he may not know that, you know, this big frightening demon, but he's actually a devotee inside. And he's looking forward to being conquered by Indra and then sent back to Godhead. So he's not going to kill Indra. The idea was to kill Indra, but that's not going to happen. But we'll see as the pastime goes on, because this whole thing has to happen with Chitraketu, and you have to learn about him, and there's some chapters here. But these prayers are interesting, because they're kind of, they're often, like many prayers, they're officially glorifying the Lord in His constitutional position and so forth. But what they finally ask for is, as in a couple of verses, please give us a way to conquer the demon. They're not asking for pure devotion. They're not asking to go back to Godhead. They're not asking to, attain vairagya. They're asking to regain their spiritual planets and have a peaceful life so we won't be threatened. Which is okay. It's on the level of what Krishna describes in the 7th chapter. Chaturvada bhajante mam jana sukrutanojana arta jigyasa artati jnanicha. There are 4 kinds of pious living beings who approach me. First is the arta. Arta is one who's distressed. Very common. This world is so distressful that surely if you go to church once a week, that previous week, you're going to find something to be distressed about, and you can pray to go to church. So that's a very common thing. Please relieve our distress. That's what the demigods are asking for. But there's also artarti, which really means someone who's hoping to go to the heavenly planets, hoping to become very wealthy. Someone who's in penury, is suffering poverty, is in the distressed condition, more or less. So anyway, that's artarti. And who was given as example? Dhruva Maharaj, who was the son of he was a great prince, but he was greatly offended by his stepmother, and he said, "You can't sit on the throne," like that. So he went out, even at 5 years old, he goes forth, going to the forest. His mother told him that only God can help you, and where do you find God? God's in the forest. I understand that these great sages go to the forest to find him. She's a simple lady, Off he goes, 5 years old. It's quite remarkable. Anyway, the story. Narada Muni saw him, instructed him how to, succeed in his endeavor by chanting the holy name, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and performing the austerities and like that. And so within 6 months, he saw Vishnu. And when he saw Vishnu, by that time, his heart had been cleansed. He didn't want the kingdom after all. Swaman Kratarta Shivana, just seeing you, my Lord, and he describes his ecstatic symptoms. He felt like he was, licking up the lotus feet of the Lord and embracing him and everything. So he said, I don't care about the kingdom anymore. So that is an important lesson, is that bhakti is a process of purifying one's desires. Purifying one's desires. Because the desires, material desires, are what's keeping us bound here, birth after birth. As we go through life, especially as human beings, we can perceive so many things, so many ideas for enjoyment can come in. And we strive for them. Some of them we may succeed in getting, others we don't, we get frustrated, it goes on like that. But those desires are one after another being implanted in our heart. And when you leave the body finally dies, your subtle body, your mind and your intelligence don't die, and those unfulfilled desires bring you back to try to enjoy again. They are the template for your new body. Plus, what you did in life, your karma. If you've been very cruel and you've hurt a lot of people and killed a lot of cows, that all comes back. You've got to pay for that. And it can be extremely painful. You remember a few months ago we read just a selection of the hells in the end of the 5th canto. Did anyone pick one out they would like to visit? I mean, I didn't. Jeez. One hell is like a copper, made of copper, and is heated from below by fires and from the top by the sun. And you have to run around on that surface for millions of years. But you're in your subtle body. You don't die. It's inconceivable. And it's like, okay, what's the percentage? I mean, you enjoyed a little. I like to think of there's one hell. If you like to eat like shellfish or lobster, after they're boiled alive, isn't that right? Oh my God. I remember when I was a kid, I lived near New York, we would go into the city every now and then. We didn't have much money, so we weren't able, thank God, we weren't rich enough to eat in those restaurants. But we go by, and then in the window, they'd have a little fish tank. And there would be this poor lobster, he didn't know anything. He's alive, and they advertise, oh, this is very fresh, this is your lobster, you can pick one out and you put it. Oh my God. What a horror, you know. I never had lobster in my life. I think from a previous life I just didn't. But this is the world we live in. Out of ignorance, people said, "Oh." I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we'd have sometimes, we have regular meat and everything. Then we'd have chicken. But the chicken, you could see they were carving the chicken, and you could see it used to be a living animal. I didn't like that. I didn't want to eat chicken because I could connect to the living bird, And so, but then I got over it. I mean, what am I going to do? After a while, I just became ordinary meat eater. But the ordinary meat eaters are like digging a huge hole for themselves in the hellish planet. Every single, animal that suffered due to your carelessness, you have to pay for that. It comes back to you. That's the law of karma. It's inconceivable. I will have a question in a couple of minutes. You can just hold it. So, but with the knowledge, basic knowledge of the law of karma and transmigration, which is basically the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, you can understand the importance. And Prabhupada also understood the importance. Our spiritual master, we have a murti, a statue of him there. He came in 1965 to teach this science. He understood that if they're really going to give up meat eating, I have to give them something better. So he was a great cook. And he taught them how to make pakoras, how to make samosas, delicious sabjis and everything. So on one side, you understand, I shouldn't eat meat, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And on the other side, you're getting something that, so very quickly you can give that up, you see. And other things, you have to somehow transcend or purify or sublimate the desires so that the desire ultimately comes to the point where, okay, how can I please my spiritual master? How can I please Krishna? I know this is what I should do. Okay, let me do it. And then you find that when you actually do that, yes, there's a certain joy that comes. Oh, I did the duty, I did the best I could, and the deities are dressed nicely, the place is clean, I went out, distributed books. And that becomes a source of happiness. Actually, chanting the holy name, all the processes we perform, gives us the sensitivity so that we can really enjoy hearing and chanting about Krishna and doing the services. And that's very good, because the more we enjoy that, the less we'll try to enjoy material life, which will bring us back. So all this is understood by the demigods, but they're so attached to their heavenly planets and their situation that ultimately that's what they pray for. How can we kill this asura, this demon, and regain our planets? And they do get their planets back, but that's not the solution to their life. Ultimately, they got to leave because they're also in a material body. Even though it's a heavenly body, eventually it'll pass away. So as this is the principle of the last shall be first and the first shall be last in the Bible. The Kali Yuga is so bad, it's so difficult that we don't live very long. When mercy is going down, truthful is going down, all these things are going down. So we're in a desperate situation. So Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya to give us the easy shortcut for going to the highest thing. It's not that he came down like, Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, but Prabhupada says, in the end he says, Sarva Dhamma Parityajya. Surrender unto me and I'll protect you, I'll take all your sins. But is anyone ready to surrender after hearing a half an hour talk from somebody in this age? Probably not, But Lord Chaitanya came to give the process by which the first time you come in the kirtan, you can feel some ecstasy, you can feel some pleasure. And with that spiritual strength, from coming, from engaging in the Yuga Dharma, one can become receptive to the science of bhakti and actually come to the point of renunciation and austerity. And that's the amazing thing. The highest thing is pure love for Krishna, and it's being given to us by the most merciful and most munificent avatar, Lord Chaitanya. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Vedayat. So we should take advantage of it. That's the whole idea. And that's why we have these Srimad Bhagavatam classes. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. And would you like to ask a question? But we have to use a mic because we have an audience on YouTube.
All right. So my question goes to when you're saying that about animals eating.
Yeah.
And I understand that everything has life. So it includes plants.
Uh-huh.
So either way, your plants suffer when you eat them too?
Well, that's a very good question. Now, in many cases, you're not killing. If you have say you have an apple or something, you're not killing the apple tree. So in such a case, you're not killing anything, right? Now, if you pull up a cabbage, you may be killing that cabbage. It's true. So the point is, as you go down, into the plant kingdom, the consciousness is much more rudimentary. Now, it's true that that if you're just a vegetarian and you also kill plants, there's going to be karma for it. But the suffering is such that it's not as serious. But more importantly for us is the idea that we have to live on something. And so at a certain point we may have to kill a cabbage. But the principle is, since we have to eat something, and there are certain things that vegetables and whatever that may perish, we offer it. We don't just eat. We offer it to the Lord. We pray that He forgive us for any suffering we had to cause by this, and by offering with love and devotion, and then we're absolved. So, but I mean, it's obviously much more pain-inducing to kill a mature cow than it is to kill a potato. You see?
Yeah.
So the principle is, because we're human beings, we have to live on something, and so there's a certain amount of that has to take place, and so but that's forgiven, because otherwise we couldn't sustain our bodies here.
Yeah, I also could reflect earlier when you said that when people barely start out in any type of spiritual path, their desires are usually connected to the wrong mindset, and so they ask unintelligently, and so even when they do get what they want, it's just a short-term gratification.
That's right. In other words, there are certainly so much religion in the world, but when someone who doesn't get full knowledge of what the real ultimate goal is, spiritual goal, then you pray to God for something material, something that, please cure my disease in the child and so forth, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not going to ultimately get you out of the material world. It'll keep, because it's just helping you try to make a little comfort here, and ultimately that we all have to leave the body anyway. And so if we're going to pray, please relieve me from birth and death. Give me some knowledge why I can, And so that kind of prayer we find throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the answer is to become more and more conscious of our relationship with God through the process of Bhakti Yoga, and live in that relationship, and then either this life or a near future life. We have a long history of many, many lifetimes, countless lifetimes. This is one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita. The living entity, the soul, was never born and never dies, but the bodies obviously are born and die. So I made up a little ditty, Every body dies, space body, every single body dies. Every body dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. So it's a little... there's a lot of philosophy behind it. But understanding the difference between the soul and the body, and how the soul is really us. We're really souls. We're all the same in that regard. In the sense, we're all pure spirit souls, kind of very minute, the source of all the consciousness in the body. What's in the body that's pervading? Krishna says, "Avinashita tadbuddhi yena sarvamidam tatam." That which pervades the entire body is indestructible. It's consciousness. It's spread throughout the body through the bloodstream. That's why oftentimes I give a class. I'm old now, and so my circulation is so great. I wake up and my feet, the foot has fallen asleep. And if you put too much weight on it, you fall over, right? Because the consciousness is in there, you don't feel anything until the circulation starts. So that's a whole mechanism for spreading consciousness throughout the body. And the most important place that the consciousness blood goes is in the mind, is the brain, so that you can think about these things, and then with your intelligence developed, you can control the lower self by the higher self. The lower self, we have so many impulses. I want to enjoy this. I want to enjoy this. Just like in any civilized society, someone is infused with or taught, basic morality. You can't just walk into a store. The parents teach the kids, you can't just walk into the store and take this toy and walk out. That's the wrong thing to do. You have to pay for it and like that, So gradually you're instilled with morality. And in this way you can live a peaceful, more or less peaceful life in the society if you have it. But if you don't know the laws, if you don't know the what's right and what's wrong and what will harm you ultimately if you do it, then you're at the mercy of your, whatever whims you have. And so that's what this modern age is. This understanding of the soul, the body, the indwelling God, what's the right thing to do, what's the ultimate goal of life, who knows, But that's what we have been given by this science of Bhakti.
Yeah, all those people who search for happiness, you're saying that they only wanted like something very simple, like they wanted their planet back, they wanted to cure their disease, but they could have that and much more if they were just to search for their Godhead.
Exactly.
Right? Go all the way in, and then they'll have happiness.
You have to know what to pray for. Just like there's so many beautiful prayers. Ladies, there's wonderful lady devotees, Queen Kunti. And she prays in her prayers in the first canto. This is way back in the book. And she's praying. Krishna's there in her city where and he saved her from the calamity by helping one of her sons to conquer the demonic forces. It's a long story. So he's about to leave, and she wants him to stay, but she's saying, "Well, I understand you're not going to stay." But then she has this prayer: "Tvaye me anandivashaya mati madhupate asakrit." So she's saying like this. It says, "O Madhava," it's a name for Krishna, "please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee." This is a prayer. And we're given the means by Bhakti Yoga how we can achieve that state ultimately. Mostly by chanting the holy name, but also other services. And then because it awakens not just the awareness of God, but also the affection and attraction to God. So that's a perfect prayer. And now she's not praying that for anything material. She's praying for the pure spirit, to let my thoughts always dwell in you and let my love always dwell in you. That's the perfection of life. Anyone else, locally or remote? Are you with us, V.I. Krishna?
Yes, I am here.
He's in Portugal.
How may I serve you?
How you may serve me? Do you have any cogent questions, as you always do?
Yes, I have a question. May I?
Please.
Pass him the mic.
No, he's got it. You can give it back.
Yes,
go
Prabhu,
ahead. Yeah.
For my question to be presented to your grace, I need for you, if I may ask, for you to read the last sentence of the purport.
The last sentence of this purport. I can do that. The entire world is permeated by the three gunas, and one can understand his presence according to one's modes of material nature.
Exactly. Thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat Pranams. Prabhu, based on this quote, my question is, if the three gunas are all created by God, by the Lord, they have a divine origin. They were created by the Lord. If the three gunas are all created by the Lord, what is the reason for me to choose amongst the three gunas only the mode of goodness in order for me to understand God and His presence? What if all the three gunas are created by God, why not making use of any one of the three gunas to understand God? That is my question.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. If you just think a minute, you can see that doesn't make too much sense. Not only are the three gunas created by God, but Adolf Hitler was also created by God. In other words, the things that The things that bind us here, that cause us torment, they're also created by God. They're made by their configurations of the material energy acting under the different modes of nature. The whole point is that because we wanted to be separate from Him, because we wanted to compete with Krishna, right? Our model of enjoyment is Krishna, but we don't come to the conclusion that, and we can really enjoy by participating in His enjoyment. That's the spiritual world. Those who do that and don't deviate, they're happy, they don't suffer. So this material world, the whole material world itself has two purposes. One is to give us a chance to try to fulfill our material desires. And then at the same time, at a certain point, to be frustrated. And within the material world, there are always Krishna's representatives present, or His book is present. And so that will ultimately come in touch with those who are looking for people who are a little bit receptive, who can learn the science of how to get back out in the material world. And will learn that, yes, this is an impossible enterprise, that all of my efforts to enjoy separately have failed, and therefore let me surrender, and let me reform my activities and my consciousness. So the whole material world can be thought of in the same way. The modes of nature simply mean different varieties of ways in which we are bound in this world. Even the mode of goodness is binding. This is explained in the 14th chapter, which we're just reading in the evening, by the way. That in the mode of goodness, one cultivates knowledge, one is more thoughtful about life, and you tend to be more peaceful. You're not so much bound by gross sense gratification like that. But that sense of happiness and peace that you get by living in the mode of goodness is itself binding, if it doesn't have within it, the content of actual bhakti. Because being in the mode of goodness is not good enough. And it's always tinged by the lower modes. You don't find anything. But what to speak of the mode of passion? Mode of passion means you're always in that enjoying mood. You want to make a lot of money, try to really, but that's obviously binding, because you're cultivating strong material desires. This could keep you back. And the mode of ignorance, oh my God, covered, lazy, suffering, dirty, procrastination, intoxication. That's you're headed down away from the human form. So just because it's created by Krishna doesn't mean that in the ordinary way that we will relate to it is beneficial for us. We have to learn the art of living in this world, even amongst the modes of nature, and cultivating the mode of goodness, which is a good platform to then cultivate pure goodness. And surrender, this whole idea of surrender, that I don't know what's good for me. Just like Arjuna at the beginning. He had all these arguments why he shouldn't fight in this battle. Right? He had his friends on the other side, he had his relatives, he had his worshipful teacher, and his grandfather figure, Bhishma Dev, who he loved and who loved him. And he would have to be participating in killing them? No, thank you. I'm going to go off to the forest. I'd rather be a beggar. You see? So, but Krishna is his friend. He's on the chariot. He wants him to fight. So he's caught between these two, and he becomes paralyzed. He throws his bow down, sits down. He's crying. He's in a tremendous dilemma. And then he does the right thing that we should take a model for. Don't just despair, Karpanya dosho bahata sabhava prachami tvam dharma samuda cheta yakshe yaksyanishchitam bruhitan me shishyastehim shadiman tvam papannam. A central verse in the Bhagavad Gita, where he changes the whole mood there. That he's giving a model for us. Now I said, I don't know what to do. Dharma samuda cheta. My consciousness is bewildered about what's the right thing to do. Dharma samuda. Because my heart is telling me I don't want to kill my friends and relatives. But my head is telling me that you want me to do that. So now I'm in conflict. So now he said, I surrender to you as a shishya, as a disciple. Now please tell me for certain what's the right thing to do. How I can attain the ultimate good. Shreya, niksheyasaya. And so that great turn, then Krishna starts speaking Bhagavad Gita, really. And the first thing is he chastises him. Oh, you're speaking these so-called learned words, but you're not a pundit. You're lamenting for what's not lamentable, the physical body. You know, you should be understanding the value of the soul and everything. So the whole first part is about 20 verses, a lesson on the soul and the body and transmigration. So anyway, it goes on like that. But unless we come to that point of giving up trying to figure it all out ourselves with our contaminated consciousness in the modes of nature, and taking higher guidance, then we're going to be interacting with material energy in such a way that we defeat our own best interests. We ensure another birth. So the fact that Krishna created the modes, one can understand his presence according to one's modes of nature. So generally speaking, in the modes of passion and ignorance, even ordinary goodness, one cannot understand his presence. One has to rise up to the mode of nearly pure goodness to start understanding and seeing that Krishna is present everywhere. So that's what he's saying here. Okay? And it's so learning how to use the aspects of the material nature, including our own body, in service to Krishna, is the art and science of Bhakti Yoga, which we can learn from the preceptors and from the transcendental books of knowledge. Is that okay?
Dravida Prabhu, has to be expected, better than okay. Very helpful. Again, outstanding answer to my question. Very complete. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. He used to say, during the pandemic, he used to say, breathtaking answer. I said, please, not during the pandemic, you know, the breathtaking answer. We got enough breathtaking. I'm just kidding. I haven't heard that. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bol.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.